King Rickard the Laughing Wolf Stark met Harkon Bolton, the newly crowned Bolton King, at the mouth of Long Lake to settle the fate of Keystone. The duel would determine whether the Dalewells, Andal allies of the Starks, would continue to hold Keystone, or if it would return to Bolton control. More specifically, return to the Locks and the Tyrells. The clash between Rickard and Harkon was savage. Swords clashed, and the fight was even and played out as if they were two dogs tearing each other to shreds. Though Rickard fought valiantly, Harkon emerged victorious, losing an eye in the process and earning the title of Wolf Slayer for felling the Stark King. Following Rickard's death, Roderick Stark ascended to the throne of Winterfell, and despite the loss, honored the result of the duel. The Dalewells, however, refused to relinquish Keystone peacefully. Dalewell called upon the Herseys from the Vale, Andals who the Dalewells have recently made a deal to aid one another. King Harkon Bolton and his coalition of allies annihilated the Dalewells, and the Grey Starks who decided to involve themselves, and the Herseys, slaughtering them. Keystone was retaken, the Locks reinstated, and the Tyrells granted their own lands. In the chaos, Harkon's son was slain by Oliver Moonfell, who was later captured and then brutally tortured to death by Harkon. The war ended in a decisive victory for the Boltons and their allies. Mor's witch-born Umber ruled with a fearsome and mystical presence, a grotesque figure with scaled skin. Mors concealed his face behind a mask, and was known for his obsession with blood magic and dark rituals passed down from the witches tied to his mother. His reign saw minor conflicts with the mountain clans, but he successfully brought the Norries and the Long clans under his influence. Under King Mor's rule, the Umber Kingdom enjoyed nearly a decade of relative peace, disturbed only by sporadic Skagosi and wildling raids. Queen Mora Kroll of Skagos faced her own internal threats, most notably an attempted coup by Clan Hross and other dissenters. She swiftly and brutally crushed the rebellion, unleashing her power as a skin changer to command beasts, bears, and other vicious wildling creatures. Her decisive and terrifying retaliation solidified her grip on power and reaffirmed her rule over the Skagosi clans, though her age leaves the future of the island kingdom of raiders unknown once she is gone. The Neck was thrown into turmoil after Jaren Marsh led a retaliatory campaign northward during the War King's assault on the Wall. Upon returning, Jaren was challenged by his kin, Mira Marsh, who opposed his actions. Amid this unrest, Doran Marsh, with the backing of Clan Horn, seized power in a civil war and achieved victory and declared himself Marsh King. With ambitions to strengthen the Neck, Doran's rule was abruptly halted when a skin-changing mishap trapped him inside of his lizard lion, rendering him unable to return to his body. Kings Dickon Ryder, Albert Glover, and Roger Dustin presided over peaceful and prosperous realms, enduring only the occasional Ironborn raid. The western half of the North has become more unified and friendly with one another in recent years, through marriages and simple understandings. With the fall of the Corbray King and the capture of Heartsholme by House Royce, the Kingdom of the Fingers collapsed, leaving a power vacuum in the Northern Vale. Seizing the moment, Lord Humphrey Hersey rose to unify the scattered Andal lords. During this time, fresh waves of Andals arrived from Andalos, among them the famed Sir Gideon Mundagane, known as the Dragon Slayer. After learning of the situation from Lord Humphrey, Gideon swore fealty to him and pledged to aid in the unification of the Andals and to spread the faith of the Seven in the Vale. Together, they launched a campaign against the mountain kingdom of Belmore. The Andal Knights of Hersey and Mundagane fought in vicious battles, where Gideon managed to slay King Tanug Belmore in combat, and their winged knights rode down the fleeing Belmore forces. Having received the title of Winged Knights for the wings on their sigil, their winged helmets, and the ornamental wings they wear on their armor. And with Gideon's victory, he was granted the High Lordship of Strongsong. Under Hersey's leadership, previously independent Andal lords united, succeeding where the Corbrays had now failed. bringing unity back to the Northern Vale rather quickly. Sir Gideon's brother, Quintin Mondagne, led a brutal campaign across the Sisters, defeating them at sea before landing and forcibly converting the population. Those who resisted were put to the sword. Lord Humphrey, wishing to limit this bloodshed of first men, distanced himself from such methods on the mainland. Alliances continued to evolve. The Swigards strengthened their political position by marrying a grandson of King Humphrey Hersey, signaling a possible shift away from their older ties with the Royces. The Horns of the Cut, having involved themselves in the Marsh Wars and the defense of the Belmores, found themselves increasingly isolated and vulnerable. Shortly after the death of his Shet wife, Humphrey Hersey passed at the age of 61, leaving his son, Osgood Hersey, to inherit his rule. In the south, the Royces faced their own challenges. A new group of Andals, the Sorleys, led by a skilled seafarer, Sir Sampson the Navigator Sorley, landed in the lands of Springwood. King Robar Royce negotiated a peaceful settlement, granting the Sorleys Old Anchor in exchange for their loyalty. To cement the alliance, the Sorleys were wed into House Melcombe, whose male line had been extinguished by war, illness, and winter. Taking the Melcombe name, the Sorleys established themselves in Old Anchor, bringing with them the Faith of the Seven and strengthening Andal influence in the region. The Royces, once champions of the First Men, now found themselves embracing Andal settlers. Clan Rutley, a displaced mountain clan, launched a ferocious assault on the Arryns, seeking to reclaim the mountains from the Andals. To the surprise of many, the Royces came to the defense of the Arryns, declaring the Rutleys bandits for their past raids. This marked a pivotal shift. The Royces, once traditionalists, wary of the Andals, had now defended them, landed their people, and negotiated marriages into Andal bloodlines. Defeating the mountain clansmen alongside their Andal allies, the Arryns, King Robar Royce, years after the defense of the Arryns, at the age of 60, died of illness, leaving his son, Russ Royce, to rule. As the tides of power shifted, it became clear that while the Royces had triumphed over the Corbrays, more than half of the Vale had fallen under direct Andal control, signaling a new era in the region's long and bloody history. King Artus Vance, known as the Builder, returned from his long and slow campaign in the Westerlands and resumed his grand project of shaping the Rivermark into a prosperous realm. Towns, septs, and infrastructure blossomed under his rule. He also oversaw the marriage between his dull-witted son, Prince Armistead, and Princess Eleanor Mudd of Oldstones. Though more cunning than her new husband, Eleanor brought with her mistresses to Vancemark, maintaining secret relationships with multiple female mistresses. Whispers and rumors spread of these affairs, but there was never any real proof. Along with this, King Artus Vance ruled over the Rivermark and enjoyed nearly 25 years of relative peace. New waves of Andals arrived, landing along the Blackwater and the mouth of the Trident. Among them was Andahar den Brove, a wealthy and ambitious lord from Andalos. Landing at Stillside, he seized envoys from House Mudd, claiming the lands of Derry as his own. However, Lady Rowena Mudd, a woman of considerable charm and cunning, managed to negotiate the release of her fellow envoys by seducing Andahar den Brove. The Den Reeves landed in the lands of the Fishers, and Sir Forley den Reeve arrogantly declared dominion over the region. In response, King Elmar Fisher summoned a coven of witches who unleashed a plague upon the invaders. Although the disease claimed Sir Forley den Reeve and nearly half of his men, the Andals still succeeded in conquering the Fisher lands. The plague persisted, and Forley's daughter, the young Bronwyn, rose to rule the Misty Isle amidst the devastation. And so ends the reign of House Fisher, for the current bears their crown no more. Elroy Orm landed on Nessing Point at the mouth of the Blackwater, immediately raising a sept and declaring his allegiance to the faith. Though initially invited to the Reach by the Darklands, Elroy discovered the Gardeners to be too powerful to confront directly. He then returned to the Darkland lands, demanding lands in the Blackwater once more. The Darklands reluctantly settled the Orms at the mouth of the Blackwater and elevated them to High Lords. But as the southern Riverlands fell further under the sway of the Andals, the land itself suffered. King Abel Darklin, reviled as the child killer for the gruesome murder of his own dwarf son, where he swung his son over his head and then slammed him down onto a rock, supposedly. He died now at the age of 67. By then, Duskendale and the nearby lands had been ravaged by the same plague attributed by many to the witches that had sacrificed King Elmar Fisher. The pestilence consumed the southeast for nearly 3 harrowing years. Thousands died and the lands filled with dead. King Eric Mudd confronted the threat of Andahar den Brove in the plagued lands. After the Maesters, 3 sons of Lady Ravenna, attempted to rescue their mother and were executed after they were captured by Andahar during their attempt to release Ravenna from custody, including Lord Maros Mallister. Eric acted decisively. Drawing on tactics used by his father Christopher in the Blackwood campaign, Eric split Andahar's forces and destroyed them in a well-planned assault. However, the victory came at great cost. The plague still lingered, and Eric lost nearly half his army to illness, including many of his lords. The king himself was stricken and nearly died. The realm weakened and grieving barely had time to recover before another invasion struck. While Mudd forces reeled from war and sickness, the Ironborn seized the moment. They descended on Seaguard and the Mallister lands, and while they were at their weakest, the Mudds were then joined unexpectedly by Prince Armistead Vance, acting as regent for his ailing father Artus Vance. Prince Armistead rushed to the defense of the coast with Eric. It marked the first time in history that the Vances and Mudds fought side by side as allies. Despite this rare alliance, their forces were crushed by the Ironborn. Reinforcements were then called up from the Blackwoods and Brackens, and they answered the Vances and the Mudds' call. They had one more chance to defeat the Ironborn, but at the disastrous Battle of Eagleside, rain and poor terrain doomed them. Their charge stalled in the mud, and they were surrounded and slaughtered. Survivors were executed, and Seaguard fell. The Ironborn held the land that they had taken, and thousands of Andals and First Men were dead in the fields, and picked piece by the crows, leaving the Mudds and the Vance army shattered. Following this disaster, Prince Armistead returned home to find his father, King Artus, had succumbed finally to his illness. With his death, chaos erupted in the Rivermark. Armistead, now King Armistead II, known mockingly as the Fool after his military failures and his supposed stupidity, faced immediate challenges to his reign. Armistead would need to rely heavily upon his Warden of the Realm, Corlys Denford, to assist him out of this mess that he now found himself in. His uncle, Henley Vance, known as the Zealot, declared himself the rightful king, citing his nephew's weakness and the disgrace brought by Armistead, that he was not chosen by the Seven to rule. At the same time, Sir Armistead Vance, the bastard son of the first king of the Rivermark, Armistead the Great, made his own claim after betting a Gardner princess and securing a Norcross marriage in the Reach. As civil war erupted between the three, the once unified Rivermark was broken between different warring sides. King Uruk Greyiron's reign came to an abrupt end after a fatal accident within his castle, prompting the Ironborn to call a King's Moot to decide who should be king. Uruk's death ensured the King's Moot's return, as none of the Greyirons were powerful enough as Euron anymore to stop it from happening. It was Cragorn Greyjoy, a ruthless and ambitious son of the Iron Reaver, who won the support of the Ironborn. Known for his fierce hatred of the Andals and his unyielding belief in Ironborn supremacy, Cragorn promised to reassert dominance over the seas and land after the recent Ironborn defeats. Wasting no time, King Cragorn launched a bold and brutal campaign against the Southern Reach. His fleets descended upon Old Town, setting it ablaze in a show of overwhelming power. The surrounding countryside suffered greatly as the Ironborn pillaged villages, looted wealth, and burned settlements from the coast to the inland strongholds. Both Hightower and Gardner forces failed to organize an effective defense of the city, falling before the ferocity of the Ironborn before a proper response could be mustered. Cragorn returned to the Iron Islands with the plunder and saltwives, his triumph celebrated across the Iron Kingdom. Notable lords like Victarion Volmark, Eric Greyiron, Dagon Drum, and Dennis Goodbrother earned renown in the new wave of reaving. The Drums, in particular, reasserted their dominance over Bear Island by once again claiming victory through a wrestling match. For the Ironborn, the previous failures were just a bump in the road. Cragorn's leadership had rekindled their old spirit, and his bold actions had proven the wisdom of the election, and the continuation of the Ironborn Golden Age. In the wake of this success, Cragorn honored his pact with Harren Great Iron, allowing him to declare himself king of the Giant's Fist. In exchange, Harren had supported Cragorn's rise at the Kingsmoot, though the agreement came with a condition. Great Iron's lands would not be protected from raids. When spring came, Cragorn pressed his advantage even further. He stormed Seagard, unseating House Mallister, and occupied the castle in the wake of the devastating Ironborn victory at Eagleside, where the forces of Mud and Vance were annihilated. The capture of Seagard and the destruction of multiple mainland armies marked the height of Cragorn's reign so far, and solidified his legacy already as a king of fire, salt, and blood. House Rayne narrowly avoided complete annihilation at the hands of King Tyrion Lannister, whose long and turbulent reign came to an end at the age of 77. Tyrion will be remembered as the great unifier of the Westerlands, a man whose military genius and iron will elevated House Lannister from internal strife to unrivaled dominance, yet his legacy is stained by his brutal actions, none more infamous than his ruthless campaign against House Rayne. His wrath was indiscriminate, his punishments too severe, and while he achieved results that cemented his rule, many considered him a tyrant cloaked in golden armor, a man of vision whose methods bred fear as much as loyalty. With the death of the Old Lion, his son Tybolt Lannister ascended as king. Tybolt's reign began with preparations for war, specifically the reconquest of Fair Isle from Ironborn control. Keen to restore Lannister authority across all lands of the Westerlands, he turned his attention westward, while maintaining his father's strong grip on the realm. The lands of Castamere, once the Rayne stronghold, had been granted to the Risleys by King Tyrion. Robert Risley, the previous lord of the Golden Grove, had grown into a knight and a great swordsman. And at the same time, the Faith of the Seven, which had gained immense traction under Tyrion's reign, continued to flourish. Lords like Plum became key patrons, funding grand septs across the Westerlands, even in the Reach, where Tyrion once had refused to fund a sept for his granddaughter Lyanna Lannister, who would be married to House Gardner. Plum and House Vance stepped in to ensure the faith spread. Lord Lynette also assisted with the spread of the Faith of the Seven, and that Lyanna would have a place to practice her faith in the Reach now, due to Plum and Vance donating resources. Not all bowed to the new religious fervor, though. Lord Lancel Lanny of Ashmark held firm to the old gods and traditions of the First Men. A skin changer of great renown, Lancel refused to permit the Faith of the Seven into his lands and maintained ancient ways, even befriending a pair of giants who dwelled within the surrounding mountains. His defiance marked a quiet resistance to the Lannisters' tightening grip of religious uniformity. Among the most feared and enigmatic figures in the Westerlands had to have been Lord Mordred Bainfort. Whispers speak of his monstrous origins, born of deep sea and cloaked monsters of the deep. Within the haunted halls of Bainfort, Mordred is said to commune with creatures unknown and conduct unspeakable rituals. A spark of the Rayne name survived, hidden away by the Viprins of Silver Hill. The last known Raynes were quietly given a new name, Cinder, and placed in a humble keep far from prying eyes. The Viprins, though outwardly loyal to the House Lannister, risked everything to protect the children of Castamere. With King Tyrion now dead, there is now hope that the storm has passed, and that the Rayne legacy might yet endure, even if only in silence and secrecy for now. An Andal warlord named Horp landed in the Southern Reach and launched a bloody assault on Pinkshield Castle. Seizing it, in response, King Ghislaine Gardner offered to rally the might of the Reach to expel the invaders on the Dunn's behalf. Yet House Dunn, prideful and humiliated, rejected this offer, insisting they would reclaim their honor alone or die. A duel was agreed upon between the two houses, and with the outcome to decide whether the Horps could remain and be legitimized as High Lords. In a brutal but decisive duel, the Horps prevailed. Honoring the bargain, King Ghislaine legitimized their claim, making the Horps the second Andal vassal in the Reach after the Catherines, and signaling a possible start to a slow and intrusive growth of Andals in the southern Reach, something the Gardeners likely do not desire. Amid this turbulence, the Ironborn descended upon Oldtown, and the famed city and port fell quickly, not because of the Ironborn's might alone, but due to the calculated betrayal of House Redwine. Lord Abelard Redwine, prideful and ambitious, had demanded prestigious titles and statuses from the Gardeners in exchange for formally rejoining the kingdom, demands the Gardener court justly rejected. Though Redwine had gained their freedom due to Gardener coin and the Hightower fleet, they chose vengeance over gratitude. They refused to aid Oldtown in the defense of their city and ceased paying their royal taxes, effectively declaring independence once more from the Reach now instead of the Iron Islands. Even as the city burned beneath Ironborn banners, the Redwines did nothing. Before these grim events, Highgarden hosted a legendary feast that would be remembered for generations. Men and women from across the Reach came to celebrate, forge bonds, and seek romance. None shone brighter than Princess Evelyn Gardner, who turned the feast into a stage for her wild and unapologetic spirit. She famously took multiple lovers during the celebrations, including an Andal bastard by the name of Sir Armistead Vance, whom she seduced in the Manda River after he fought at Darkland, supposedly over her attention. The scandalous yet enthralling scene played out before a watching crowd, while the children of the forest, ancient and mystical, watched the revels with curiosity, participating themselves. The feast would become legend, not only for its pleasures, but for its symbol of the changing times in the Reach. King Ghislaine Gardner continued to rule with strength and patience and wisdom, aided by the counsel of Lady Josera Crane, whose beauty and political acumen made her the most revered person in all of the realm. With the Reach having been betrayed by the Redwines, Ghislaine did not waver. As the Redwines abandoned their oaths and defied the crown, Ghislaine quietly began assembling a new fleet, preparing to bring justice upon the rebels and restore order. His patience still remained, though his patience had limits. King Durin Stormcrown Durandon, touched by the old powers of wind and wave, stood atop the battlements of Storm's End, carving into his own chest with a bronze dagger to receive visions from the Storm God. In his pain, he saw a great fleet descending upon Massey's Hook, a rocky outcrop jutting into the sea. The vision came true when the Massey fleet was utterly destroyed by an invading Andal force led by Sir Prentice Strickland, a zealot. The Stricklands, aided by the Toynes of Driftmark and the Andals under the Darkland banner, made landfall with their strength unchallenged. Yet instead of collapsing, the Masseys sought an alliance. A pact was made. They would retain their kingship, but swear tribute and marry into House Durandon. In this way, the Stormlords and the Masseys united and drove the Andals back into the sea with fire and fury. A bloody battle on the peninsula that saved the Masseys from destruction. In the wake of this hard-won victory, King Durin took measures to preserve the realm for generations to come. He sent his sons and daughters across the Stormlands to be fostered by the great houses, such as Slain, Blacktide, Fell, and those of the Marchers, believing that to rule well, a family must first understand the hearts and minds of their people. Amid this time of internal strengthening, the Stormlands opened their gate to unexpected guests. The Borals, once rulers of the Sisters, fled their homeland after it fell to Mondogane. They were adrift. They were granted sanctuary by Durin, who welcomed them as honored guests. Peace did not last, though. Driven by ambition, Durin once more marched into the mountains of Dorne for the second time, seeking to claim victory where he had once been defeated. Yet again, he came to the gates of Castle Will, and again he failed. The Ironwoods stood defiant, and the Storm King was driven back to Storm's End in defeat. But while Durin fought his wars with the Ironwoods, with banners and loyal lords, another force stirred deep within the Rainwood. The bastard son of Rialta had finally grown, raised by the Green Queen. He is said to be part giant, and had grown to monstrous proportions. Towering and broad, with arms like tree trunks, and a massive weapon few men could even lift, he was a creature of strength, without wit, rage with a violent cause. What the gods had denied him in intellect, they had granted him in wrath. His sole purpose, carved into his very bones, was to kill Andals wherever they stood. Following the death of High King Edred Lake, The Kingdom of the Greenblood needed to elect a new High King. A heated and contested election ensued, with many notable houses vying for influence over the succession. Ultimately, Lord Gavin Brownhill emerged as the new High King. His rule, however, was challenged almost immediately by the arrival of Sir Vorian Roxton, a powerful Andal knight who laid siege to Castle Tor. They attempted diplomacy with him. Gavin offered Roxton and his followers a humble piece of land to peacefully live in the Greenblood. The Roxtons refused. Instead, they left and went to the Ironwood Kingdom. Their answer came in the form of Yoren Ironwood, the Blood Royal. Yoren locked in a rebellion with Lord Owen Fowler, who sought independence for his people, offered to conquer the Tor and its surrounding lands for the Roxtons if they aided him in his war, and crushed the Fowler rebellion. The Roxtons agreed, but they did not realize that they were entering a conflict that would brutally and rapidly escalate. The Drylands Danes and others joined the Fowlers in resisting Ironwood control, transforming the Civil War into a full-blown Dornish war. Yoren Ironwood was killed in the fighting and succeeded by his son Yorick, who became the new Blood Royal. Battles in the Dornish desert were savage and unrelenting, but eventually, the Corgyles, Fowlers, Danes, and Drylands achieved victory by securing Fowler independence and taking lands from the Ironwoods, a hard-won victory that shattered the Ironwood power for a while. To make matters worse, a Durrandon invasion struck the Ironwoods during their moment of weakness, though they rallied together with the Roxtons and ultimately repelled them. Despite the setbacks and losses, Yorick Ironwood honored the bargain made by his father, and after winter, the Ironwoods moved to seize the Greenblood land of the Tor and deliver on their promise to the Roxtons. Sir Vorian Roxton, after their victories in the Greenblood, was granted the Castle Tor and its surrounding lands, and he swore loyalty to the Blood Royal. Thus, the Greenblood Kingdom was carved up and part of it taken and into the Ironwood Dominion, its High King humbled, and its influence curtailed. The Roxtons, new lords in this strange land, became a symbol. This latest shift in power further illustrated the unpredictable nature of Dornish politics. Rarely did one kingdom rise without the other soon falling, and Dorne remained ever in flux.